What's the best way to deal with Russia in 2026? Don't let Russia hit you first. Get preemptive and take out the Russian threat before it ever has a chance to do anything to you. In a world where deterrents seem to be less effective than they've been since the beginning of the 21st century, striking first is better than being struck. At least that's Germany's new approach. In a landmark legal ruling, Germany has granted its spy force the power to attack Russia before Russia attacks Germany. Preemptive strikes are about to be launched, but those strikes won't involve missiles and bombs. They'll involve new powers granted to Germany's intelligence services. The best drone is the one that never rises and can threaten Germany, declared the chairman of the German Bundestag's Parliamentary Control Committee, Mark Henrichmann, ahead of a crucial vote that would determine whether Germany's cabinet would grant a new raft of powers to its intelligence agencies. Hours later, the votes were in. The new law had been passed by the cabinet. Just as Henrichmann declared it should, Germany had taken a massive step closer to giving itself the power to strike against Russia preemptively, rather than to always wait and respond to the hybrid warfare strategies that Putin has employed against Berlin ever since the Ukraine invasion began. Reuters was among the first outlets to report the news. In an August 12th piece, the outlet revealed that Germany's cabinet had passed a bill granting the country's intelligence services the power to hack communications to disrupt operations planned by foreign adversaries. The controversial move gives both the BND and BfV, which are Germany's primary intelligence agencies, far broader access to digital communications, along with the ability to collect more data than they ever could before, and to carry out what Reuters described as active operations to thwart attacks. This suggests that Germany won't just be collecting data so it can point at it and say, look what Russia plans to do. Because let's face it, this is all about Russia. What this new law appears to mean is that Germany's intelligence agencies can actively conduct hacking and counter-sabotage operations to stop those plans from materializing into anything concrete. This is a revolution and a historic change in Germany's approach to how it uses its intelligence agencies, declared the country's Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt in the wake of the vote. It's high time we positioned ourselves to be competitive and on an equal footing with our partner services around the world. This requires operational capabilities and active powers to tackle modern state terrorism and extremist groups more effectively, Dobrindt added. However, there is a caveat to all of this before we continue. As The Guardian points out in its report on Germany's latest decision, it's the German government that has given its approval to the new draft law. That law still has to pass through a full parliamentary vote before it becomes official German policy. That may end up being a stumbling block, as support for this move isn't absolute in Germany. But before we explore why, it's also not as though this draft law has come out of nowhere. Germany has been trying to beef up its intelligence services for a long time now. Money was the first solution that Chancellor Friedrich Merz landed on. The BND budget for 2026 has already been increased to $1.73 billion, and Merz has been making moves to relax the restrictions placed on the BND in relation to using AI and facial recognition technology. One by one, guardrails are being lowered. The draft law itself has also been in the works for a while. On February 17th, Politico reported on the moves that Germany was making to strengthen its intelligence services, amid internal claims that those services must attain some level of autonomy so that Germany doesn't solely rely on the US and its European colleagues for information. As Henrichmann pointed out at the time, we want to continue working closely with the Americans, but if a US president, whoever that may be, decides in the future to go it alone without European partners, then we must be able to stand on our own 2 feet. So this new law isn't just about approving preemptive measures. It's about Germany making the moves it needs to make to ensure its entire intelligence community doesn't collapse if the US decides to withdraw its intelligence sharing. We have the basics on the new law, but these are the new powers defined as we understand them so far. Germany's intelligence services will have the power to implement a range of measures once they have discovered a plot in the process unfurling, Politico reports. Those measures can vary depending on the scale of the plot. Exposing the culprits and who is backing them is one approach the services can take. That may be the choice when the plot is unlikely to do any damage, and Germany can instead use it to score some geopolitical points against whoever might be behind the plan. Russia. Other options may include destroying the property of people identified to be part of the plot, sabotaging explosives that have been created ahead of an attack, or even feeding the people involved with false intelligence after an attempted attack, leading to confusion in the intelligence services of Germany's adversaries. A key guardrail in place for all of this is that any response that Germany decides upon must be linked directly to the original incident that it uncovers and may not endanger physical safety or life, Politico adds. Reuters provides a few more details, adding that the new draft law calls for a new set of rules that would allow Germany's intelligence services to install state-operated software that tracks online searches and enables telecommunications surveillance. Several types of entities, including telecoms companies, transport operators, financial intermediaries, and digital platforms, could also be ordered to hand over information on command under the new law. All of this will be in service of what Germany wants its intelligence services to be capable of doing: strike first, strike hard, and ruin the plans of any foreign adversary. However, you may be hearing all of this and perhaps feel like this new law is a little bit of an overreach. Expanding the powers of intelligence services is one thing, but giving them what seems to be carte blanche access to online search and telecoms records is a potential invasion of privacy that could be seen by some as a step too far. You wouldn't be alone if that's your opinion. We mentioned that Germany's new draft law still has to make it through a full parliamentary vote and that it could be a hurdle. The reason why is that support for this particular law isn't unanimous. DW points out that Germany's Society for Civil Rights considers several aspects of the draft law to be unconstitutional, especially when it comes to the far-reaching surveillance powers that Germany's intelligence services are going to receive. In particular, giving those services access to public and private video surveillance in real time is a problem, claims the Society's expert Kai Dittmann. There are no sufficient and clearly defined limits for such far-reaching intrusions, which above all affect countless innocent people, Dittmann says of the law, adding that granting Germany's security services the ability to carry out cyber operations and active campaigns against identified threats blurs the constitutional boundaries between intelligence services, the police, and the military. These sentiments are echoed by Clara Bünger, who is the domestic policy expert for the Left Party, which is part of the opposition to Merz's coalition. Because the intelligence agencies will no longer be required to inform those affected in many cases, effective legal protection is no longer guaranteed, she declares. There are also concerns about what untethering Germany's intelligence community using this law could mean internationally. Politico points out that Germany's spies have typically been restricted when it comes to more aggressive information-gathering operations due to restraints applied to Germany by the international community in the wake of World War II. Those restraints existed to prevent a repeat of the abuses that the Nazis' massive spy network was guilty of. For some in Germany and outside the nation, this new law would be a dangerous step away from the restrictions that have kept Germany's spies in check for 60-plus years. The counter-argument to this claim is that it's not the 1940s anymore. Germany is a very different nation from what it was under the Nazis, and it could be argued that Europe now faces a similar threat to the Nazi scourge, only it comes from Putin and his imperialistic version of Russia. That's the argument that Henrichmann made ahead of the vote, telling Germany's Welt TV, "We really have to enable our services to paralyze and turn off the attack drone in Russia or the factory that manufactures it before it's directed against the German airport or against the safety of life and limb of people in Germany." Still, there are barriers to overcome. Will the draft law make it past those barriers? It seems very likely to do so. Merz's coalition party, which includes the Christian Democratic Union, Christian Social Union, and Social Democrat parties, holds the majority in Germany's parliament. When that parliament returns from its recess in early September, that trio of parties is expected to force through the bill with their collective vote, regardless of the opposition. DW goes as far as to claim that this follow-up vote is considered a mere formality. If that's the case, then we can say with some certainty that Germany's spies are soon going to bring a slew of new powers to the table. However, the question remains, why was this necessary in the first place? We're going to tell you precisely why. But before we do, this is The Military Show, and there is a lot more where this comes from. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please take a second to hit the button and enable notifications to ensure you never miss a video. So we've been calling the new powers that Germany is granting its spies preemptive. That's true in the sense of what those powers allow the spies to do when dealing with plans in progress. However, we could also argue that Germany's new law is far from preemptive in the context of its wider conflict with Russia and that nation's seemingly endless stream of hybrid attacks. We head to Leipzig airport. Late in the night of August 4th, a quadcopter drone was discovered loitering at that airport, and it had been seen floating between planes. The discovery forced a runway into lockdown as Germany sent in a bomb disposal robot to handle the drone. Then, another twist in the tale revealed itself. The Russian drone wasn't floating between any old planes. They were Ukrainian Antonov cargo planes. The implication was obvious. A Russian drone had been found, and it seemed to be lying in wait to potentially destroy a Ukrainian plane on the tarmac. At the very least, it had been placed by the runway to serve as a threat to Germany. This time, the drone did nothing. Next time, well, we've just proven that we can get drones into your airport. Interior Minister Dobrindt warned of a new level of danger in the wake of the incident, though he stopped short of saying that it was Russia behind it, instead claiming that the event may involve foreign powers. Everybody knew what he meant by that, and on August 10th, US intelligence confirmed that it believes that Russia was behind the drone incident in Leipzig. German outlet Bild also claimed that authorities investigating the incident found traces of DNA at the scene that matched a sample taken from a firebomb that had been posted via DHL to the same airport back in July 2024. This doesn't appear to have been confirmed independently yet, but the fact that this attempted firebombing even took place at all, on top of the drone incident more recently, offers a major hint as to why Germany is giving its spy services new powers. Russia's hybrid warfare against Germany is escalating. Dobrindt has said as much, exclaiming, "We're not at war, but we are the daily target of hybrid warfare. Espionage, sabotage, cyberattacks, or covert operations by foreign powers aimed at destabilizing Germany or inflicting direct harm are a constant reality." He isn't wrong. While the two incidents at Leipzig airport may be among the most prominent, Germany has been dealing with all too many hybrid warfare incidents. The number and scale of those incidents have uncoincidentally escalated since Russia invaded Ukraine, and Germany threw its support behind the nation that Putin wants to oppress. That's according to a 2025 report by the country's domestic intelligence agency. Of course, said agency has a certain bias, as it would have been campaigning for new powers at the time. However, the claim isn't without merit. The numbers seem to back it up. In a February 2026 report, the International Center for Counter-Terrorism examined a large number of incidents of hybrid warfare conducted against European states. It said that in 2025 alone, Germany recorded 320 attempts at sabotage, though it wasn't always able to determine who was behind these sabotage efforts, likely because its intelligence agencies were stopped before they could dig deep enough. Still, 320 in a year is very close to the daily threat that Dobrindt talks about, and that number only covers sabotage. There are cyberattacks, drone incursions, and other forms of hybrid warfare that would easily make the daily attacks claim credible. In fact, if we throw cyberattacks into the mix, then daily is a massive underestimate. Hourly would be more accurate, and every few minutes would be more accurate still. In a May 12th report, Euronews revealed that Germany registered 334,000 cases of cybercrime in 2025, two-thirds of which were either confirmed to have come from abroad or were perpetrated from unknown locations. Dobrindt noted that many of these attacks had come from Russia, as he once again called for the new law that Germany is now on the verge of passing. In total, Euronews says these cyberattacks are believed to have caused about $230 billion worth of economic damage in 2025 alone. These statistics reveal the true scale of the hybrid threat that Germany now faces, and that threat is such that Reuters reported in July that the country's Interior Ministry had upgraded Germany's security stance from abstract threat level to high threat level. In practice, this upgrade means that Germany must reckon with the risk of attack at all times, and that plans for these attacks are now clearly discernible, claims Dobrindt. Here we see Germany's true justification for its new law. For decades, its intelligence services have been hamstrung, forcing them to rely on outside sources for most of their information. Clearly, that approach isn't working as well as Germany needs it to work. If it were, then the country wouldn't be recording over 300 acts of sabotage and hundreds of thousands of cyberattacks in a single year, and it certainly wouldn't have happily absorbed $230 billion in economic damage due to the latter. Germany wants not only to stop all of this from happening, but to actively punish the perpetrators, thus sending a message that Germany isn't to be messed with anymore. But it all goes deeper than that. When Germany looks at the increasing number of hybrid warfare instances that it's recording, it isn't just seeing Russia attempting to intimidate and cajole. Germany sees escalation, and that escalation is taking Russia, Germany, and perhaps even all of Europe down the path to a much wider war than the one that currently rages in Ukraine. Germany was saying much at the beginning of 2026. A leaked report covered by United 24 Media in January, which had been prepared by Germany's defense ministry, noted that Berlin expects to become one of the first major targets of Russian hybrid warfare due to its role as the main NATO logistical hub in Europe. Furthermore, this escalating hybrid warfare might also serve as preparation for a future military confrontation. with the document stating that Germany would likely face armed drones, long-range missile strikes, and even attacks by special forces in the wake of a Russian offensive on NATO's eastern flank. To sum it all up, Germany is increasingly convinced that war is coming, and that war is going to be started by Putin, just like the one in Ukraine. Fast forward to June, and warnings were still coming from Germany's military command. The country's army chief, Lieutenant General Christian Freuding, has already claimed that all 32 of NATO's members agree that Russia may have the capability to launch a large assault against NATO territory by the end of the decade. That gives Germany and its allies a 2029 deadline to get ready for such an assault, and hampering Russia in the early stages through increased powers for intelligence services will help. A couple months later, another of Germany's leading military officers, General Carsten Breuer, told the Wall Street Journal that Russia has been systematically using drones to probe European air defenses and test for NATO responses. The Grey Zone campaign is being intensified, Breuer declared. And what happened at Leipzig airport was the perfect example. Russia is using its tests to refine its tactics for a future conflict, the German general adds. Berlin's top military minds couldn't make it more obvious if they were shouting it from the rooftops. They believe that war is coming, and Russia's hybrid tactics are just the start. Germany must be ready to fight back when the time comes, and tackling what is happening on its territory right now is a key step. Again, it all comes back to what we said at the top of the video. Reacting is no longer enough. Neither is relying on the NATO deterrent. For Germany, a preemptive approach is needed to show Russia that it can't simply escalate and expect no response. Assuming Germany's parliament passes the law, it will come into force at some point in 2027. Then we'll see how Putin responds. Will he back down or will he escalate further? That's the big question, but it's becoming increasingly clear that Russia's poking of the NATO bear has become so incessant that the bear is awake and ready to bite. It's not just Germany making major changes. Poland is gearing up to take a massive step that will shake the Kremlin to its very core. What is that step? You can find out if you watch our video. But before we head away, we hope you enjoyed this analysis of Germany's new spy laws. If you did, why not subscribe to The Military Show? We publish videos like this every single day. And thank you for watching.